as you may have seen with the ending of 9.2, turns out Anduin is not returning, and now this Golden One claims a vacant throne whisper that has been going around for years is starting to make a lot more sense. There are some hints that he is helping Sylvanas within the Maw, searching for his parents in the afterlife for his own peace of mind to recover from the jailer's domination, but most importantly, out of all of this is that Turalyon, the leader of the Light Army, is now in charge of the Alliance, and maybe that old speculation for the next Light Bad expansion is not so outdated anymore. As a gamer, you definitely spend a long time in front of screens, and GMG performance might just be the solution. I have multiple glasses that they sent me, and they're pretty much just like a physical blue light filter. Now, if you use my link in the description, for the next 48 hours, you will get a 25% discount, so you can get them at much cheaper. As you may have already heard, one of the oldest speculations for the next and the big Light expansion has been based on this one quote: "The Golden One claims a vacant throne. The crown of light will bring only darkness." This was almost certainly referring to Anduin, and it made a lot of sense. The crown of light is Turalyon, and the Golden One is Anduin, who claims a vacant throne because he is not there. This was the setup for the speculation that Turalyon will lead a light invasion of Azeroth with the help of Yrel from alternate Draenor and all those crazy Light Draenor people, and I gotta say, it was 100% plausible. Turalyon is of Lord of nobility, he is a hero of the Alliance, and due to time passing differently, he is like thousands of years old and is pretty much the main guy when it comes to the light as a cosmological force. Then, the main part of the speculation is that with the Forsaken weakened and him being of Lord of nobility, he would launch an invasion of Gilneas and Lordran in order to consolidate Alliance power over most of the Eastern Kingdom and also to take it over for the Light. Pretty much just turning Alliance into a Light faction. This bit of speculation was kind of debunked as we got cross-faction grouping, and Blizzard explicitly told us that there won't ever be a huge Alliance versus Horde war, because if the Alliance intended to take over Lordran, that would be a faction war larger than anything that ever happened in the battle for Azeroth. However, we kind of started believing this entire theory less because we learned Anduin will ultimately be freed without any significant consequences, and he will survive, but the most recent ending of the Shadowlands campaign pretty much put this entire storyline back on the table. As the expansion ended, we got a conversation between Genn and Anduin. Now, as we had previously seen a conversation between Genn and Lord Tamar, we learned that Genn isn't exactly happy with the entire Sylvanas' judgment thing and all that stuff, how that happened and how that ended. He's like, cool that she is going to recover the souls, but what justice is there for all those that she murdered? Which, I gotta say, I definitely agree with. However, this conversation between Genn and Anduin is the most interesting bit and a possible foreshadowing for the next expansion and the future of the Alliance. They initially talk about his time under the jailer's mind control and all the bad things he did, and Anduin says he could have been and should have been stronger to not fall under the influence, while Genn tells him he cannot be blamed and he is the strongest man he knows. He then reassures him that when he returns to Stormwind to lead the Alliance, the entire faction will be able to attest to his strength, but Anduin now comes with a completely unexpected line. He says that he cannot go back, not yet. Genn tells him his people need him, they have been leaderless for long enough since he was abducted by the Dark Kyrian, but Anduin replies that he doesn't worry, Turalyon will keep the Alliance safe in his absence, while he also trusts Genn that he will help as well. Now, Genn ends up with, take your time, but please come back when you're ready, and this is pretty much just where the actual conversation ends. Now, this end is the most interesting bit. It kind of confirms that Anduin has some unfinished business in the Shadowlands, but he will also more than likely return at some point in the future, possibly in the near future, maybe even in the next expansion. Now, you may be wondering, what exactly does he have to do with Shadowlands? And at the moment, we have two speculations going around, with the main one being the most likely and the most evidence support. Some people believe that he will be on the search for his mother and father Varian, most importantly Varian, because there was his fragment inside the blade that ultimately freed him, so Anduin may have to actually search for his soul specifically to actually free him fully if he somehow ended up within the Maw through Charlemagne. However, the most evidence-supported theory is that he's going to be helping out Sylvanas within the Maw, which, kind of say is a bit ridiculous when you look at it from this entire perspective. As you have seen with the latest cinematic and the ending, Sylvanas was sentenced to dig out every single Night Elven soul she condemned to this fate, and now she's destined to do so within the depths of the maw. But there are some hints for the latest Sylvanas novel that she gets someone that will help her, and that is more than likely Anduin. Why people believe this is the case is because Anduin is described in the actual book multiple times, and almost always when he's around, the clank of his metal armor is mentioned. Now, the actual book ends with Sylvanas' sentence, and there is a line. But before Sylvanas could again stride forward into the vastness of the maw, she heard a sound. One familiar and utterly unexpected, the distinctive clank of metal armor. This is from the book, but there is also an encrypted model for Anduin in the 9.2.5 PTR, so most evidence points to the fact that he's going to help her on her task. Although personally, I gotta say, I don't really see why he should be able to do this in any way. Maybe they're going to combine this meeting with going in to find Varian's complete soul to rescue him if he's trapped and split with Shadowlands, because so while obviously tinkered with the sword, he had something to do with Varian, so he may help out Sylvanas as well while he's doing this. But other than this, I really don't see why Anduin would abandon the Alliance leadership in order to help Sylvanas with her pretty much just community service. Now, all of this is with the ending of the Shadowlands, but what exactly does this mean for the future World of Warcraft, more specifically the new expansion that will be announced any day now? Well, realistically, this could really be a foreshadowing for the Light and the Void thing we had speculated about for ages now, and maybe the old god whisper will finally come to fruition. The Golden One claims a vacant throne. The crown of light will bring only darkness. Maybe this is referring to the point where Turalyon starts going a bit crazy and Anduin just wraps up whatever business he has within the Shadowlands and gets his claim on the throne, and now the crown of light brings darkness to the world of Azeroth. Of course, right now we can only speculate about what can happen, but apparently there is this big what is to come in the next expansion, as the jailer told us with the cinematic. There will be a threat unlike anything ever before, and it is almost certain that Azeroth will be important also in the future, as it has been important in pretty much anything that ever happened up to this point, and pretty much everyone and their mother has been interested in our planet at some point in time. If this big thing is the first one mechanism breaking, it might mean that there will be a free-for-all and just a gold rush for all the cosmological forces wanting to get their hands on the most powerful battery that is our world soul, and Turalyon as the main agent could use the Alliance as the staging ground for the Light. Just think about it, it will be the perfect setup. Every time someone invaded, some sort of a local traitor force was used, but it was almost always either just agents, small incursions, or at the most the Scourge, the army that started an invasion. But this time the Light has a guy that is leading the most powerful faction right now, with bases and infrastructure over the entire planet, who is also a hero of the Alliance and a very respected figure, so he totally has the weight and the legitimacy to start another invasion. And again, referring back to that old speculation on getting Genn on board and opening the Light portal, where the army from Altered Draenor will be able to reinforce his Azeroth Light army. Of course, these are just speculations that we have, but I think it is a pretty big deal that Anduin is no longer in charge of the Alliance, at least temporarily. He has always been the main figure in keeping the factions together in peace, and without him, things might change, especially with Genn being the second most important figure of the Alliance. As we can see with his Shadowlands conversation, he isn't exactly planning to play friends with the Horde or butting up with them to any extent. His logic is, I really hate you guys, but I just have to play nice because that is the official policy of the faction. Now, of course, Turalyon has gotten very little screen time, so his motives are a complete mystery, and it is really totally up for speculation. He has been mostly positive, but we have seen fanatical sides of him, such as torture and that entire Illidan ordeal when he killed Zerab, which wanted to actually enslave him. Also, the Turalyon after the Light Crusade and before is a completely different person. It is obvious that his allegiance definitely lies more with the Light in the Alliance, as he spent like a millennia with the Light and he's very highly ranked. So without Anduin as the king, the doors could be open for many future interesting scenarios. As a reminder, if you use the link in the description for the next 48 hours, you'll get a 25% discount on GMG Performance glasses.